Redding is a beautiful place. We have national parks in 3 different directions, 2 world-class lakes. This is a sportsman's paradise, but it's also full of wonderful people. We have business leaders, community leaders, faith-based leaders, all of them working towards a singular goal, and that's to make this a great place to live. I wanted to showcase these people, give their perception of the place that they call home. This is allredding.
What's up, allredding? I have Coach Anthony Williams here with me. Really excited. Thanks for coming on the show today, Ant. I just want to get into kind of your story. You're a story of resilience. You're a story of just beating the odds, and I'd love to dive deeper into this so that people in this community, in the town, can learn the real Anthony Williams.
I like that. Yeah, that's good. I think, as I've grown up here and kind of went through the school system and now back working in the school system, I think some of that has, we're in Redding. Everybody has their opinions and stuff. So it's nice to be able to tell my story and maybe give people a fresh perspective. So it'll be good.
Right. So let's jump off into this. So you got Enterprise High School. You're a Sac State alum. You're a Simpson University alum. You got how many master's degrees you have?
Yeah, I 3 master's degrees, business. Exercise science, and I'm working on the 3rd actually, so not quite. And it'll be in education, taking a lot of units. My grandpa, before he had passed, he told me, "Hey, continue to always learn, don't stop learning." And I took that very literal, and I pretty much never stopped going to school. I'm 32, and so we're a long ways into this academic journey that I thought was going to end, but it's still going.
Yeah, that's awesome. I echo that statement. Like, never stop learning. You've always been a student, and I think one of the things that you've been a student of is you've been a student of the game in many different ways and aspects. And so I kind of want to jump into like a little bit of the sports side as well. Just tell me somebody, coaching wise, teacher, mentor wise, who was kind of influential, kind of in your upbringing and your thought process and the way you live your life and the things you do.
Yeah, we had, I had, I say we because I have a twin brother. I also have a sister, but my brother we're connected, very connected. But we had a lot of people who were very influential in our life, and I hate to single people out because there were so many coaches and people, but one that really did it for me. And again, we had a ton of people help lead us through life, but that I still have a high respect for is Mr. Mike Hayworth. Mike Hayworth. He was our basketball coach in high school. He was really one of the people that taught me what tough love is, right? Like, hey, there's still mutual respect here, but you got to perform. You have to perform well, and we expect you to perform, and that's a good thing, and that's okay. And he put a lot of pressure on us in a good way, and he went about it in a way that made sense, especially in retrospect. Yeah, when I think of I'm very passionate about the things I'm involved in, coaching and teaching, or in school administration and just life in general. A lot of the passion I got was kind of seeing him be passionate at giving, building the next generation, which I was blessed to be a part of that. And so Mike really led us in a phenomenal way and showed us that, hey, even sometimes when you don't have the most athletic kids and the best teams, like, you can be very successful. I played on some pretty good teams, but I seen teams before me and after me who weren't super athletic, and he got those kids to play really hard. And I know Mike's a little misunderstood to some people too, because he was so hard, and I don't think that coaching style, you could get away with it anymore. But yeah, very influential guy. Love Mike. He really was there for the kids, and so yep.
I think about that term that you said, tough love, and I was like, how does that come across in today's society? Like, when you're trying to work with a kid, or you coach now, right? You're coaching currently at the college.
Yeah, so I coach track and cross country at Shasta College and girls basketball enterprise, and I think things evolve, right? Things in the world are evolving, and just like in basketball, schemes are evolving, right? And in football, plays are evolving, and training and track, it's evolving. The shoes are evolving, the spikes itself, right? Okay. And so, tough love has evolved, and how we got tough love growing up. We can't approach it the same way, and I think as coaches and educators, we've had to evolve. And I think it starts, the root of that is really building relationships first, right? Yeah. If you're going to, be tough on a kid and do it in a loving way, you have to have some common ground and you have to have a relationship with that kid. And if you don't, that could be an issue. And so that's where it starts. And it's just different how we go about it. Because back in the day, they could just, get on us and yell at us.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I remember that.
It is what it is. And you kind of went with it and the parents went with it, but you just really can't get away with that anymore. And I don't think it's for the better or for the worse. It's just where we're at in society. And I think, I've tried to evolve and I'm still working on that. I'm still trying to get out of that. I'm just gonna,
Is that too old school? Is that too old school?
Yeah, I think, the old school, the old school way of coaching and going about things, I think we're moving past that. It was really good for me and beneficial for me. And I think some kids and students and athletes still today would really benefit from that kind of that old school coaching and, or teaching. I do think the majority of, kids, they need, what we've evolved into, like, some of that less of that tough love, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And that's just me talking. But I think the parents, if there's any parents listening, you would agree that tough love is what they need. But I think we're moving away from that a little bit.
No, I get it, man. I think, even in just, speaking of parenting, I think just even in parenting, I've had to kind of shift my mindset of like, well, you should just spank them. You should just hit them. You should just, and I'm like, because again, like maybe that's kind of some of the stuff that, we have like in our background from growing up or whatever, that kind of tough love thing. And I'm like, I can't really do that. And so maybe I go to like a different strategy and I use like a timeout or, you know what I mean? Like a time away and things like that. So, pretty interesting evolution. Good to hear you talk about that. Can you talk about like why, just because you're a coach, you're a player, you played multiple sports, maybe dive into that a little bit.
Yeah. So I played basketball, football, track, ran cross country, played soccer, baseball, pretty much my whole childhood. And then, I went to college and ran track and then transferred back to Simpson to play basketball. And I never stopped playing sports. For us growing up, it was really an escape from the reality of life, right? Like, what we had to go home to. And, and I see some of my students now and I'm like, they got it tough. And so I'm like, man, we had it tough, but there's always worse out there. And so, but for us, if we would rather have been at school and at practice than at home for the most part.
Right.
And so there's a variety of, different reasons for that. And so I think that helped us become more committed, right? We're like not every student athlete right now has, they like, a lot of them like to go back to their house or play their video games, where we were like, no, let's stay at practice. Let's just grind and get better. And then like go when it's like really dark, get home when it's dark.
And you kind of had like a built-in kind of competitor in your brother, right? Like,
Yeah. So my twin and I were very competitive, and I think that was because we always had somebody right then and there playing one-on-one basketball, or who can hit it further off the tee in baseball, or who can kick the ball the hardest in soccer, or who can get the better grades, which I won that battle. Or who can get the best looking girl, right? And so like growing up, it was just like, who's going to win in the fights, right? Which my brother got me a little bit more than I got him in that realm. And that's okay. But we learned at an early age that life is competitive, man. Like if you want to survive and you want to eat, like, you're going to have to compete to be the first one to the bread store to go jump in the trash can and get some food, right? Like on the chip runs. And so, unfortunately we did some things that we were looking back, we regret now, but it's competitive and, it's a survival of the fittest. I think it's kind of the mentality we took growing up. Like you got to be the best if you're going to survive. And we've kind of taken that into life. Yeah,
I love that, Coach. And you talked about the chip runs. Can you bring us back with that? I always enjoy hearing.
Yeah, so we growing up, we had this little we grew up in poverty, right? And single parent household, and my biological mom did the best she could, but it's hard when you're in and out of jail, or you're kind of in the drug scene, and you got a lot of sketchy people around, right? And so it's just hard to provide, and that's just kind of a very general way. It's just hard to provide in that setting. And so there used to be a bread store off Hart and L across from Dudes. I don't know what it's called now. and they would they would throw away all the expired food. And so we would go on these things that we called the chip runs with our friends, and we would, we kind of figured out when those, the stuff would be in there, and then it would be like, first one to get there gets the best stuff. And so we'd go on these runs, whatever it was, a couple miles to maybe that's why I became a good track athlete. I don't know. And we'd run over there, grab the food out of the trash, and it was wrapped up, and we'd have some snacks and whatever for the next few days. And
so you were just competing like against maybe other people who, knew that trash can was there.
Yeah. My brother was one, and then some of our friends kind of got in on it. You spread the word a little bit, because look, when you're in that environment, you're in that, what we call like this habitus, right? It's like, you're around people who are living in that world too. And so you're all kind of have the same struggles. And so we kind of, like, the word got out, hey, the chip run. And so we kind of came like a way to make fun of the situation for us, right? And some of our friends, keep it light. Where and maybe we didn't during that time, we didn't really think it was as bad as it really was, Yeah. And so that helped us.
So looking back on times like that, did you you're using that type of competitiveness to maybe like propel you forward? Like was the chip runs, was that like, did you have to do that on the daily? Did you have to do that on the weekly? Like what type of a grind was that? Like,
yeah, that was, it was more like a weekly thing, right?
Okay.
Yeah, weekly thing. And, for us, we knew if we wanted to, this is not a knock on my biological mom. Like, she did the best she could, but we knew if we wanted to, eat things of somewhat nutrition, like, we had to go to school. And so we had to be at school to get breakfast and lunch. And then, after that, after school, it's all right. Now we're out there. We're going to compete to figure it out. And, that could look, other than just chip runs. I mean, honestly, this isn't good to say. And, it is what it is. Like, we did things that, like, kids shouldn't be doing, stealing and, like, trying to get, food from, stores and stuff. But it's because we were just trying to survive. It sucks to admit something like that. But that's just where we were at. And, I don't think that, that's the people we are today, thieves and stuff. We're not stealing, from the grocery store anymore. But that's just what we grew up in, and we didn't really know any different. And a lot of times the kids don't know any different, and they get stuck in that. And unfortunately, we didn't.
That's the reality of your world. But like, how do you come out of that? You talked about being stuck in that. How does somebody get out of that, where it's like not just the perpetuation of the cycle, like if this is generational, this is socioeconomic, and this is generational, and this is just the stuff that's getting passed down, and you're learning, you're getting conditioned, like what breaks the cycle, what breaks the chains?
Yeah, I think if people come into your lives, which there's an opportunity for people to come in your lives in a variety of ways and settings, and for us it was in education. We had some incredible teachers, coaches, staff members, and administrators come into our lives and really, show us the light in a way. And that happened, really in sixth grade for us. We had one specific teacher, Miss Parks, who was like, showed us that, like, there's another way. Like, you guys have some athletic ability, and like, you're not bad kids. Like, you think you are. Like, you could change this now. And then I remember in sixth grade thinking, I was like a D student. I was showing up to school because I needed to eat, but like I was a D student. I was like the non-student of the family, right, out of the three. And then like she had a conversation with me, and I'm like, man, like I can be better, and I can do something. And like from there on, like my grades were, I was an A/B student, and things, went up from there. But and that was from an academic standpoint. And so I think people can change lives, and really adults. We have such a huge influence on the youth, and sometimes we don't even realize that or know that. And at the time, I didn't know that, but they really pulled us along, man. And they must have seen something in us, because I think about me right now, and I'm kind of in the school administration world, and as a teacher and coach, like maybe I can do a better job of finding those kids who just need somebody to say, hey, you can do it.
I believe in you.
Yeah, I believe in you, and give them hope. But they gave it to us, and they must have, like, it's just odd, like thinking back, like we had so many people come in our lives, and it's like, why us? Why not our buddies who are dead right now?
Yeah.
Not why not them? Was it like, what did they see in us that they didn't see in those guys? Obviously I think a part of it was some of the athletic stuff, right? But still, like, those guys competed too and played sports with us, and so. Yeah, we're blessed. We got very fortunate to have some great people come into our lives.
Yeah, I've always recognized that, kind of like in similar to my own story and traveling that trajectory for me, it is kind of the reality of like people coming in, but then also like and maybe you can relate to this and speak more about this. Like, there's kind of that internal pressure for like you to be the person who like maybe like is leading that generation or leading that family out or like getting your family. Like, do you feel that pressure? Like, have you ever felt that pressure of like,
Yeah, I always thought, growing up, well, one, it's like I knew I didn't want the life. Like, I wanted a different life for my kids. I still don't have kids, and I just knew like there was a different way. And I think about some of the kids that are, kind of stuck in this, the cycle of poverty. And like I always, to me, like I like the light went on in like middle school. Like, hey, there's another way. So like I wonder how. And I mean, there's reasons why, but it's like, man, if somebody could just get that kid, connect with that kid. And for me, it's like I always felt like I had to be the one to go to college first, to graduate first, and I would go on to do that and like be able to provide for my family when I have a family, and provide for my siblings, right? I think people who are kind of in this cycle of poverty, like you get so connected with your siblings and your family, and you want to help each other so much because you experienced all that stuff growing up together, and that's all you had. That even when you become an adult, like you have a hard time like not being the glue person for the family. And I think I've kind of been in that, even as an adult for the last 10 years. It's like, my family supported me too, but like I've felt like an obligation to make sure that, look, if I'm winning, we're all winning. And you know what I mean? Like it's hard to be the winner when not everybody else is winning.
Right.
And so, how do you get people to win with you? And so that's kind of just in my own personal life I've been wrestling with in the last year. It's, and so, yeah, it's
just kind of the weight of that pressure that you are feeling to, you said, be the glue.
Yeah, be the glue guy, for the family. And but it's hard because, when you can't do that for your family all the time consistently. But there are also times too when I needed somebody to be the glue person in my family who was for me and was able to get me out of situations or things, whether it was fiscally or mentally or emotionally, and they've been there for me. And so I just think there's, people who come from that upbringing that I came from, and it's like, it's just, there's such a tight bond because you went through it all together.
Yeah, there's a dependence, I think, that you're kind of touching on. I think that's, the reality of that dependence is true. And so, that just brings me, because you're talking about family and like, we're sports guys, I think of like, team as family. And so it's like, can you speak about like why team matters, like maybe more so than like your individual accomplishments and things like that? Because you've won a lot in your life. Like, let's just take it back to high school. It's like how many section championships were you able to be a part of?
Yeah, we had a lot of good teams. I think we won 17 or 9 team championships and 8 individual, track section championships. And so, yeah, we had a very successful career for a lot of different reasons, right?
So why does team matter so much then?
Yeah, I think we live in a society right now too where it's everything's I. What can I do? How look at my stats and look at the money I make, and the team aspect of it does get lost, right? And people who are successful, they realize that at some point other people help them build that success or get there. I would argue that, right? Like most successful people realize and they give credit to people who've helped them build, their, whatever business, help them get through grad school, help them, be successful in the coaching world, whatever that is. And so one, you can't do it alone. Nobody did it alone. Right. No. And I think when we talk about team, it's everybody working together to achieve a common goal. And a lot of us, we have goals in our life, and to think that, hey, I'm going to be able to navigate that by myself, it doesn't happen easily. And so if we can learn to trust others, be accountable to others, then to accomplish goals, those will be easier if everybody's in it together. And so, yeah, I do enjoy being a part of teams, in work, but also like helping kids learn how to be a part of a team, which is really hard now, right? Because like it's just everybody's just it's about me and my individual stuff.
Yeah, I got Instagram, I got TikTok.
Yeah, and so like guys, like kids, when you grow up, it ain't just gonna be you, working as a teacher. You got to deal with admin, you got to deal with the other staff, you got to deal with the students, you got to deal with everybody. Even in business, you're dealing with a lot of different stakeholders, and so it's never just gonna be you. It's never just gonna be you.
Yeah, and that brings me to kind of the point, like you're talking about why team matters, more than individual accomplishments. And I think you have a lot of individual accomplishments as well, and that just reminds me of like, you know, when you see kind of like, you know, dynasties, you know, pop up and you talk about like great you know, people remember like great individuals, but like if you were part of a dynasty, like if you were part of a lot of winning in a row, you know, I mean, you could talk about the Bulls, right? You could talk about the Patriots, you could talk about the Warriors, you could talk about whatever, you know, kind of pro sports team you want. That is filled with like MVP caliber players and then like role players. So who stands out for you when I speak of like role players, like when you think about like back in your life or back when maybe you're winning accolades and individual awards and things like that, but you're talking about a dude or, you know, or a person who's next to you, who's in the trenches, or maybe like someone who's at practice with you, who's making you better.
Yeah, one guy that stands out, and he's still locally, or he's still here local, is Anthony Cavalli. I mean, he coached at the college for a little bit, and I'll never forget there was one practice. I mean, back in the day, you know, maybe still at practices on the guys' side. I don't know. Like we were like one day it was like we were fighting, and it was like basketball. And like he's like, we're fighting like on the court, you know, like what? Stop messing with me, dude. Like I'm trying, like no, you know. And he was like, I'm gonna make you better. I'm gonna make you better this year. And like Cavalli never played a minute in the games, but every day in practice, he tried to work me and like he made me better. And I just think about like role players like Anthony, right? Like who just showed up, made others better and did his job. And like without, you know, the Anthony Cavallis of the world, you know, are we as successful as we were in, you know, in those years in basketball and in football too? You know, he was a little bit more involved on the football side, but you know, and again, I flip it to football. Like wherever the coaches wanted him, he was. Well, you know, if they need him on defense, he was there. They need him in the slot, he was there. They need him on the outside, he was there. And I think about the success of, you know, the high school teams that I were on, many glue guys. You know, obviously, you know, how do I say this without being like arrogant? But like, you know, I was the MVP, but like I don't get those MVPs without Cavallis, without some of these other guys, you know, the Colemans of the world, you know, Troy Woods and some of these guys who were, you know, worked their butt off to be great at what they had to be great at, so I can go and be, you know, the MVP or the guy, you know, running the thing.
Well, I mean, when you're a player, right, and you're on the bench, like you know, and the buzzer sounds and the final horn goes off or whatever, like you still get a ring, right?
Yeah. No, you still get the ring and you still get the glory, and but we see that in life too as adults, right? Like I think right now, I mean, I'm the, you know, the administrative intern at Enterprise, like I'm the low guy on the admin team, but it doesn't mean that like the role I play doesn't help the team be successful, right? And so like when we think about it like in a broader scope or the broader perspective, like just because I'm a role player or a role person, it doesn't mean I'm not contributing to the success of the team. And so how do we get kids and how do we get people to buy into that and understand that? Well, it's hard. It's hard when they're not on the court. It's hard when they're not leading the charge. And so, you know, we try to just, you know, show those athletes or show those people how their contributions are helping the team be successful. Because sometimes it's hard for them to see that and have clarity. Like, yeah, I'm on the bench, coach. Like, I don't play, or I play, you know, 6 minutes a game. Like, I'm not doing anything, but like you are, because you're showing up to every practice. We can't script plays without you. We can't scheme without you. We can't scrimmage without you. If you weren't there, we'd be worse.
Yeah, I think, you know, I've had the honor of coaching with you as well, you know, on some teams that have been pretty successful, you know, just respectively. And I think it's fun to look back and kind of reminisce about some of those teams, especially like the first year we're out in basketball together, you know, and just kind of highlighting some of the players where we knew we had top tier level kids or talent or kids that were going to play all, you know, most of the minutes. And then you had some of those kids that they still like, they understood their role, like whether they were just, you're going in for 2 minutes to play defense on this one girl and just do your job and do it well. And is that getting lost in society today?
Yeah, I think it is, right? And I know you're talking about, you know, we had these two girls, you know, we'd sub them in and we told them, hey, you go in at, you know, you're going to play for 4 minutes and just the other girl's going to sub in for you, whether we tell her or not to. So you guys are going to play, you're going to guard the best person on their team for 4 minutes, everything you got. And then the other girl's going to come in for you. And like that was their role. And they bought into that. And I think it's because we did a good job shaping that role and showing them like this is going to help us win championships. And it did. It ultimately did, right? Like and they bought into that role. Yeah, and I think, you know, the reason why I think it's becoming maybe a lost art, like kids really buying into some of that role player stuff and the idea of that, like, yeah, I'm coming off the bench, but that's not important, is because because they're not the guy on Instagram who's getting all the views and the likes, right? And so I think it's hard when like they're not getting the spotlight, they're not getting the likes. Or like growing up for us, like we didn't have all that. So like there was no, I got 1 million views on TikTok because of my highlight. Well, if you're not in the game right now, you're not getting the highlight, right? And so I think, that's a part of it. It's like the social media is like, and kids want that instant feedback.
Does that cloud their judgment?
Yeah, they want the clout, and then it clouds their judgment, right? Even for the kids who are like the MVPs, right? Because they're, they got 5 million views, but like you haven't won anything. How many times have you seen that where like you got 5 million views, but you've never won a championship? So like, what's more important, right? And so there's always that kind of that both sides of that argument.
Yeah, and so talking about that, just because this did happen in kind of the Instagram, social media, TikTok world. Talk to me about a kid. You inherited a basketball program, right? A pretty successful girls basketball program. It's like year one, you're kicking it off, and your best player, is a kid named Jaden Matthews.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a blessing, a curse looking back that we had such a good leader to begin our coaching career, because you just think it's going to be like this all the time. And we found out that it's not. You don't get girls like that all the time, or kids or leaders or people who want others to be successful and who are really selfless. I mean, she might be the most selfless player I've ever coached. Like, she didn't care. She didn't care, how many points she cared. She didn't care where we put her in the schemes on offense or defense. She just wanted everybody to be successful and to give us and to give us the opportunity to lead, right? Like she played varsity for 2 or 3 years, I think, at that point. And Coach Herman was her coach, and she was loyal to Herman, and she gave us an opportunity without telling us no. And I'll never forget that meeting with her and Karina. Like, hey, I asked these 17-year-old girls, hey, will you just give me an opportunity before you doubt me? And they said, we will. And they got the other girls to rally behind us, and it was a collective effort. And we had one of the most successful basketball seasons of any high school girls team here ever, in the high school ever here, to play, get to the Final Four in the state Division II, not 4 or 5, Division II state level. It was incredible, and it's still a journey I remember and think about and reminisce on. I don't even know what, 8 years later, 9 years later, we're kind of removed from that a little bit.
And it's just hard. Like I think you're right. You hit that nail on the head when she just kind of was cut from a different cloth to be able to like have that maturity and that sense of character to like step aside and be willing to be led, right? Like I don't think a lot of people are willing to be led.
Yeah, and yeah, we see that like with the youth today, because there's so many people in their ears too, right? You got all the trainers, you got the parents who think that they know best, and you got the people on Instagram who they're looking at, and so they're letting everybody try to lead them, and so the coach almost isn't as influential as like they once were, right? Because there's so many influences on all these kids' lives, and it's hard for them to really buy into the coach, because you got dad, you got trainer, you got trainer's friend, you got the Instagram, you got the TikTok telling you how to shoot, or how to run or how to train, and so I think it's really hard for them to step back and like just say, hey, I'm gonna let my coach me. Yeah, we are blessed, with that group, and even kids after Jaden, where I would argue we're cut from a different cloth, and every group's different, every kid is different, so it makes it unique, makes the experience unique for sure.
Do you think that you have to adjust kind of some schemes, like when you're realizing like you said earlier, this group is not that group, and I gotta like maybe change or shift like a style, or I gotta shift some strategy?
Yeah, I think, of course, right? Like, if you've coached or you've taught, like every class is different, every group is different. So you're always trying to figure out, one, what motivates each kid, because everybody's motivated by different things, even as adults, right? We're motivated by different things. Some of it's money, some of it, whatever it is. And so we've had to shift over the years and try to, shift things to fit, the kids we have. But really, how can we connect with them on an emotional level? I think that's been the hardest shift for us, because we come from that old school style of coaching where we just, it's just tough love always. It's very blunt. And we took a step back and we tried to evolve a little bit and do it a little bit more like appropriately to fit the kid we're coaching now. And I think this year is going to be another opportunity for us to kind of like evolve in a way that fits the kids now. And so things have changed. It's been fun. I mean, it's different for sure. We've taken a step back, right? You can't yell at the kids the whole game. I mean, we can yell at the refs now. Just joking, Les. But yeah, you can't yell at them the same. You can't yell at them consistently. You got to be a little more lighthearted, I guess. And it's been an adjustment because we just weren't used to that growing up. I mean, everything in the house, at the mom's boyfriends were yelling, and then you go to high school and it's like rah 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 rah. I mean, we played through an era of greatness at Enterprise, like the golden era. I mean, 2000, 2000s to the early 2010s, like. Will there ever be a better era of high school sports in Reading? Probably not, right? Because everything's diluted now. And so like we were in the middle of that and it was like incredible. The True Bloods, the Devers, the Hayworths. We got to experience that, and you can't, I would argue, and maybe they'd be disappointed for me saying this, but you can't coach how they coached anymore.
Yeah.
You just can't do it. You can't get away with it. And I think people realize that though. Like I'm not the first one to say that. You just can't.
So how do you keep like shifting, changing, evolving with the times? Or are you just like, should we fight this current trend or this tidal wave? Or do we just like, because I'll see also too, a lot of coaches are just like, because they can't coach like that, they're just like,
I'm out.
I'm just not going to coach.
Yeah. And I think I know people who stopped coaching because of that, right? Because I want to coach like I used to 20 years ago, or like how I was coached. And what I've realized is like if you want to make change and you want to have an impact on the youth, like you're going to evolve with them. And I think at the end of the day, like my mission on earth, right, is to be as impactful, for the youth as I can. Just like I had people in my life be impactful for me in a positive way. And so if I'm not willing to adopt or adapt and evolve with the current trend and the current kid, I'll never be able to have that positive impact that like I want to have. And so I've been willing to evolve, and that's okay. As much as like I resisted, in the early years, but like I really feel like I'm here to try to make positive impacts on the youth in Reading, especially, and that means I always have to be evolving, and I have to be accountable to myself too, and be willing to learn and be willing to, like, this is like the first, like I had a conversation with a kid recently, and I've never done this, but like this is where we're at, and it's like I had to take a look in the mirror. It's like I asked her like, hey, I want you to hold me accountable this year. I'm asking you to help me. Like, can you help me be a better coach? And it's like, we're in a world where like, that's okay, right? Because like,
it's like this mutual exchange.
Yeah, it's like the kids are on the same level as us. And if we like, in back in the day, it wasn't. It's like the coach is like the god, right? Like, oh my gosh. And then like, we're like doing it. But now it's like the kids are kind of like on the same level. And like, there has to be a mutual respect. And I think like they appreciate that, like to have that dialogue and that open, those I guess the open conversations. And so like I'm all about it because I want to, I want to coach a long time. I want to be an educator for a long time. And I want to impact as many kids as I can, until I'm done. And if that means I have to evolve and be more open-minded and, have kids help me lead and become a better leader for, the kids who are coming behind them. Yeah, it is what it is.
How do you think, Coach, that you're misunderstood maybe, like, in this community, like, as a whole? Like you've spoken to this, evolution that you've had, but like maybe some people don't see that the same way that you see that as like, I'm trying to grow and get better. You're like, some people are just, or is it really just like people are still stuck in like high school or whatever else? Like,
I think it's a little bit of both, right? Like we're so removed from that. I mean, 15 years later, I still hear things like, oh, I don't like the Twins, right? Because in high school they did this. I'm like, we're like 15 years out of high school. Like, yeah, we're like such different people now than we were. But I think there was like the early years, like when we were in high school and like right after high school, it was like the community loved us, right? Loved the Twins, and because of the story, and to kind of overcome some of the things that we overcame, and to kind of get moved into the guardianship and still were successful. And I think they were kind of enamored a little bit with that story, and we were successful athletes and stuff. And the Reading's a very sports crazy town, and so
yes.
And so I think it was a thing. And then as we become adults, we're vocal, right? Like we're passionate, we're vocal, like we want to win in sports and in life. And sometimes when you're going to be successful and you win, others aren't going to like that. One of my coaches, I started coaching track at the college. He told me, look, when you start having success, look, if you're losing, nobody's going to say anything. If you're losing at life, nobody really has anything to say. But he said, when you start winning, people are going to start talking, and they're not going to like you. And it kind of happened to him. And and that's the truth, right? Like as much as people want to cheer you on and root for your success, when you out success people, sometimes they don't like it. And so I think that's part of it too, right? It's like, you got these, young kids who, I'm talking about early on. It's like coming in, and we were pretty successful early on in our coaching career. And, and honestly too, my brother a little more so, but like, we didn't always go about it the right way. We're a little bit flamboyant, a little flashy, a little, we're vocal, we're out there. We didn't do it quietly and humbly always. And so I think then people are just like, oh, they're arrogant and they're selfish, and people don't want to, but we're not, right? Like we're passionate, and we're competitive, and we love to win.
And people get that confused.
Yeah, you get that gets confused. You see even with like the great coaches in the world, right? They're passionate, and people are like, oh yeah, that's too much, or they're selfish. It's like, I would argue we're not, right? Like we're fairly humble. Like we want to support the community. We help others, and so I just think it's kind of the Twins from like the early 2010s. Like we've become different now, and for whatever reason, and I'm at the point in my life where I don't sit here and defend it. I don't care. I've learned people are gonna judge you no matter what, and they're gonna think you could prove to them that you're not this person, and they're still gonna think you're the person they thought you were, right? Like it doesn't even matter. And so you get in your 30s, and adults used to tell me this. You get in your 30s and your 40s and your 50s, like who cares? Because people are gonna think what they want anyways, and you're just wasting your time even pondering why do they think this about me. And so I've really grown a lot in that the last few years. Like, who cares? I'm just going to do what I can, be the best person, be the best version of myself I can, be the best coach, educator, whatever it is, friend, be the best friend I can.
Yeah.
And that's it. And the people who love me and respect me, like who are in my, circle, you could say, like their opinions are the only ones that matter. We live in a world where everybody's so consumed about what other people think of them, and it like drives their daily habits and what they do. And I'm like, I just don't care anymore. Just if you're somebody who I respect and love, like, your opinion matters. And if you're not in that category, which is most people, then I don't really care what you say, because I'm going to get there with or without your negativity. So,
but for you kind of like that, they've earned, those people in your circles, like they've earned that respect, right? Like that's
yeah, that doesn't just happen, right? Like that's years of being around and establishing trust and
through the good and the bad, right? The ups, the downs, the adversity.
Yeah, and and you establish that. Yeah, you build those relationships with people and your friends, and you build that trust. And the people close to me tell me, "Hey, you're messing up, Anthony. Like that's not a good look." I'm like, it's like, oh, okay, what was I thinking? Then I can have that conversation. But I got random people tell me, "Well, why'd you do that? That's not a good look." Like, I don't.
Yeah. Who are you again?
Look in your mirror, right? Like,
right.
It was like so interesting. After I got divorced, I had people like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing this? I'm like, why do you care? Like, why are people so consumed with other people's lives? Just worry about your life, your kids, your family. And I think the world would be a little bit better of a place if everybody was just so not so consumed in other people's lives and stuff.
I think you hit that on the head, because then that blame forces me to look outward, but reflection forces me to look inside.
Yeah,
and I don't really want to have to do that because there's some stuff in there that I don't want to find.
People don't want to look in the mirror.
Yeah,
and really do that deep reflection about like, hey, what's wrong with me? And I had to do that through that divorce process, and even as a coach, right? Like if I had to do that over the years, and I'm not scared of it anymore. I kind of welcome it, right? Because without that reflection, can you really have growth?
Can you? Yeah, you're embracing the change. Anthony Williams, you're a passionate guy. So tell me, you're following sports teams, and I always love sports is so weird because we just get a weird attachment to a team, right? And that just becomes so go back in history, for you, what's your favorite sports team memory and why? It could be college, pro.
Yeah, I think for me, we had this football game in Paradise. It was the section championship, and it's so funny because people still remember this. They're like, man, I was in Paradise. I'm like, and people don't know the background, the context was even crazier if you knew really what happened that season. You rewind 2 weeks from that game, we go to Paradise, we're both 9-0, and they beat us by 40, 50 points. 3 weeks later, we see them in the championship, and it's like, yeah, good luck, guys. Everybody's like, yeah, they aren't winning. I'm not making the trip, right? People are like, I'm not making the trip. They just lost by 50 3 weeks ago to them. And I remember kind of leading up to that game, the practices were different. It was silence. I'll never forget playing football. And I remember asking Coach Truba, it's kind of silent right now. And the whole week was just silent and just hitting and fighting. And we were so focused that like like they say, hey, you got to communicate, right? Like, communicate on the basketball court. And it's like, but it was like freakishly like the opposite. And I just remember it was like eerie for like 3 or 4 days of practice. And then, we get to Paradise and like, we think we're going to win. Like they got us so hyped. Like we think we're going to win the game, even though they just beat us by 40. And, it comes down to at the end of the game, the field goal gets blocked. My brother picks it up and he runs with it and then throws it. Well, the game's over. Everybody, we're going to lose. Well, at that time, 4 or 5 of their kids came on the field, which you can't do during a live play. Anyways, after a 20-minute discussion, Coach Struble really going, to bat for the team. We get the ball back. It's like 4th and 24. On our 4th and 24. We're in the huddle and Struble had asked, like, what do we want to do? And my brother said, you're going to throw me the ball. And we're like,
that's what he
we
said?
weren't going anywhere else with the ball, right? Like,
Oh my
so
gosh.
I'm like, yep. So I just remember, throw it. My brother, most incredible catch. You can still see it on YouTube. He like 2 guys there, catches it, comes straight down his back. I mean, you think it's gonna pop out.
Yeah.
Holds it at the 1 yard line, and we're like, I think we were all in such disbelief, like, oh my gosh, it was 4th and 24, but like we still had to go a yard, right? So like we get the first down by like a yard.
What's the score at this point in time?
I don't remember the exact score. We were down by five points. We had to score a touchdown, right? And so like we're rushing to the line, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he got it. And so we give it to Jared May. He gets stuffed, and I'm like, the play was called to go back to Jared. I said, no, I ain't giving it to him. And I'll never forget, like we snap it, I just pull it and go and score a touchdown.
You
and
called the audible.
I just a little audible and just on my own and scored. And I'll just never forget being like, dude, we how do we do this? You're right. And when you get, leaders and our coach at the time, great leaders and people really helped us believe that we can win and overcome that obstacle. And I think that's life, right? We all have so many obstacles and things we're facing. And if you can get people to motivate you and really believe in yourself that you can overcome something, like it could happen. It will happen. And so it was a good life lesson. But by far my favorite moment, I still remember it like today, especially the in the huddle shenanigans and then my brother comes out. He's a little bit different than me. In the paper, everybody in the stadium knew the ball was going to me. They should have put 8 guys on me, and I still would have caught it. I'm like, okay, James. That wouldn't have happened.
James Williams.
Oh man. So yeah, that's one of my favorite memories. And there's a lot of memories. We had a lot of. I keep saying we because just my brother was kind of like together.
He was always there.
Yeah, he was always there, right?
Yeah.
And like without him, there was not a me. Without me, there wasn't a him. And so. I attribute a lot of my success, especially at my athletic accolades, to him. Because without him, I wouldn't have been any of that. Because we grew and battled every day in freaking Galaxy, off of Cirrus Street, right? Like outside on the hoop, battling, beating each other up, playing basketball, these one-on-one tournaments. And I'm like, gosh, man, I don't miss those days, man. Like being pissed at the dinner table because I just lost in a one-on-one or vice versa, or at a video game, and like just. Oh, we're so competitive. We still are, and it's like hard to like unwire that, right? I share the story with our kids of how competitive we are, and maybe I shouldn't share this on the podcast, but like we're so competitive. One of I used to teach in a mod severe classroom, students with severe who are severely handicapped, and he like challenged me to a Wii golf game, and I'm like, I'm thinking like, all right, I'm gonna let him win, and then like we start playing, I'm like, nah, like. I ain't losing to you, and whatever. And so maybe that's not a good thing. I should have let him win, but I didn't. And I'm just so competitive, and I can't turn it off, right? I'm like, and I've always wondered, like, why is it always on? It's always on, and maybe it's just that survival instinct, right? Like I wouldn't have been here without it, and so it's like hard to unwire that, and I don't want it to go away because like I still have to compete for things, right? If I want to reach my the pinnacle of what I want to reach, like it's going to be competitive to get there on that journey. And so like I can't let it stop right now. I need to give me like 15 more years. And then maybe like down the road, I'll be like, all right, I can chill out and relax.
All right. So dinner's on the line. You and your brother, 1-on-1, game to 7, one's only. Who's winning?
He might get me right now because I'm a little out of shape, a little overweight right now. And so I think he can get by me, but he wouldn't beat me without getting roughed up a little bit. Like he's gonna get bruised. He might be bleeding by the end of it. I ain't just gonna let him win, And so it would be fun. I mean, we don't do that kind of stuff anymore because we're so competitive. Like even now, like we don't play 1-on-1 because like we're old, so we'll get hurt. And we I don't want to go to the hospital, and so we've really in our last 5 years like no one-on-one stuff anymore.
You guys had to make like an agreement, like a truce.
Yeah, it's like just like we both
man.
know, like if we were at a
my
camp or something, just go light because we'll turn on a trigger.
my
We'll
goodness.
get competitive on a trigger. It's
That is awesome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank Anthony Williams.
Yeah, thank you guys
you
for
so
having
much,
me.
Coach.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, thank you guys.